Marvel already told you how this movie ends. They put it right there in the title, and almost nobody's talking about it. Brand New Day isn't just a catchy phrase. It's the name of one of the most controversial storylines in Spider-Man history. A story where Peter Parker's entire life gets rewritten by a force he can't control at a price he didn't fully agree to. And once you know what that story actually was, the marketing for this movie starts looking a lot less like a fresh start and a lot more like a warning label.
Back in 2007, Marvel published a Spider-Man arc called One More Day, which led directly into a rebranded era called Brand New Day. Here's the premise, stripped down. Aunt May is dying. Peter is desperate to save her. A demonic entity named Mephisto offers him a deal. He'll save May's life, but in exchange, Peter's marriage to Mary Jane has to be erased from existence. Not just ended, erased. Peter says yes. Reality rewrites itself. Peter wakes up single in a world where his marriage never happened, and everyone around him, MJ included, has no memory that it ever did.
It's one of the most hated storylines in the character's history among longtime readers, precisely because of what it takes away without consent. And it's also unmistakably the exact phrase Marvel chose to put on a movie poster in 2026. That is not a coincidental title choice for a franchise this carefully managed.
Here's where it gets interesting, because you don't even need the comics to see this coming. It's already baked into how this movie starts. At the end of No Way Home, Peter makes a devil's bargain of his own. He asks Doctor Strange to make the entire world forget Peter Parker ever existed, to protect the people he loves. MJ forgets him, Ned forgets him, everyone forgets him. Peter gets his sacrifice, and in exchange, his whole support system gets erased from his life without their permission.
Sound familiar? That's the exact emotional shape of One More Day, a memory-erasing bargain that saves someone, but costs Peter every relationship he has. Marvel didn't just reference the comic arc's title, they already adapted its central mechanic 3 years before naming the sequel after it.
So, when the official synopsis says Peter is fighting crime full-time in a world that doesn't remember him, and warns that a change in Peter he may not have the power to control is coming, that's not vague marketing copy. That's the studio telling you, almost word for word, that this is a brand new day story in the fullest sense. A life getting rewritten by forces outside Peter's control. Again.
This is where the actual villain mystery comes in, and it's a real mystery. Tom Holland has publicly said the true antagonist to this film hasn't leaked anywhere, and that it's unlike any villain the franchise has used before. For an actor famous for accidentally spoiling his own movies, that's a genuinely unusual thing to hold on to this tightly.
But the leaks around the edges of that mystery are extensive, and a few of them point toward candidates who fit the rewriting reality theme disturbingly well. Take this one with real caution, since it's speculation stacked on speculation, but it's the theory that fits the title best. In the comics, Mr. Sinister is a geneticist obsessed with engineered evolution. And in certain storylines, his consciousness can actually jump between host bodies, surviving death by taking over someone new.
If that's accurate, you've got a villain whose entire power set is erasing who someone was and replacing it with something else. That's not just a cool power. That's the theme of the whole movie, wearing a costume.
A separate leak claims Peter spends a large chunk of the movie under the direct influence of the Jackal, genetics-obsessed comic villain Miles Warren, the architect of Spider-Man's infamous clone saga, before breaking free by the end. If true, that's a second version of the same idea. Peter isn't fully himself for most of this film. Someone else is rewriting him from the inside.
Whether it's Sinister's body jumping, the Jackal's manipulation, or something else entirely, the pattern across every leak is identical. Peter's identity is not fully his own for most of this runtime. That's Brand New Day, beat for beat.
A hero waking up into a life he didn't choose.
There's a third thread worth mentioning, and it's the most literal reading of a change he may not have the power to control. In the comics, there's a storyline where trauma triggers Peter physically mutating into a monstrous, multi-limbed version of himself, the Man Spider, before he claws his way back to being human. Some leak trackers think Brand New Day is building toward a version of this, identity loss as a literal physical transformation, not just a psychological one.
Stack all three theories side by side and you get the same through line three different ways. Something is going to take Peter apart this movie, piece by piece, before he gets to put himself back together. That's not a guess about plot mechanics. That's just what the title has been telling us since the day it was announced. One more wrinkle, Sadie Sink is very widely believed to be playing Jean Grey, one of the most powerful telepaths in Marvel Comics. Someone whose powers in the source material absolutely include altering and erasing memories. There's also a rumored character tied to anti-mutant activism, which only makes sense if a mutant is already a public, contested presence in this story. Put a telepath capable of memory manipulation in the same movie as a title literally about memory and identity being rewritten, and you have to ask, is Jean part of the villain's plan? Or is she the one who eventually has to help Peter undo it? Nobody's confirmed either direction, but it's very hard to believe that casting is a coincidence, given everything else lining up. Here's my honest read. All speculation clearly labeled as such. I don't think this movie's mystery villain is any single leaked name. I think the real villain, thematically, is the concept the title is naming outright. Something or someone is going to erase, rewrite, or hijack who Peter Parker is. The same way Mephisto did in the comics, and the same way Peter did to himself at the end of No Way Home. Sinister, the Jackal, Jean Grey, some combination of those, might just be the mechanism. The theme was announced the day they revealed the title. If I'm right, the emotional climax of this movie isn't going to be a fist fight. It's going to be Peter fighting to get himself back. That's the theory. Built off the title itself, not just the leaks. What's your theory? Sinister, Jackal, something nobody's guessed yet? Drop it in the comments.